Y'all, this is my first time in Oklahoma City. This is my first time. It's my first time, and you guys, I came in, because I don't know anybody well yet. I met your pastors for the first time like 30 minutes ago, so I'm trying to put on my best face, like, hi, nice to meet you. And lo and behold, I got stuck in Pastor Rodney's personal bathroom. Like in his office. I was stuck. Like, I'm not even joking. I was like, okay, because I just put my stuff down and I went in there and I couldn't get out. Your whole youth group pastoral team was working on getting me out. We really thought that Sawyer was gonna have to axe down the door. So now you guys will never forget me because I was the one speaker that got stuck in the pastor's bathroom. All right? They're so excited about that. So now we got close real quick. You guys are not strangers to me anymore because now we're family because I got stuck in your pastor's bathroom. So there you go. I heard it was revival season for y'all. Who's excited for revival? Yeah? I remember my very first revival. I don't know if you could tell, but I am Korean American. It's okay if it's obvious, it's okay. And I remember my very first revival was a youth group, Korean American church revival. So Korean Americans, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my peoples. Are you Korean? Who said, oh, yeah, okay. There's a little bit about my peoples. Okay, the way we do revival, because we have a deep revival history in our blood, because Pyongyang used to be called the Jerusalem of the East, because it used to have this huge wave of revival in East Asia that spread throughout the rest of Asia. And so revival is just in our blood, it's in our bones. And so Koreans are really loud when they pray, okay? So what was typical of not all, but many Korean American youth revivals was we would scream Jesus 3 times. Now, I was not church growing up. I did not grow up in a Christian home. So I'm in this situation where I'm in a church revival. I don't even know what revival even meant. Like, what do you mean revival? It sounded like an energy drink. I didn't get it, but there were t-shirts and pizza, and I'm like, I'm down, right? And basically, the preacher is preaching, and he's spitting, and I was in the splash zone in the front, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. He says, go to 1 Kings, and let me tell you, it took me the entire sermon to find 1 Kings. Okay, and then during prayer time, he's like, okay, you guys, here we go. We're gonna pray. And then he told all of us to scream the name of Jesus 3 times. And I'm like, is this like Christian version of abracadabra? Like Levadia Leviosa, whatever Harry Potter magic voodoo, like what is this, And so you have hundreds of Asian kids, screaming, Jesus, 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 and then they would scream, and then something would happen in the room. And people were speaking in a language I've never heard. And then you got like little kids just weeping. And I'm like, where am I? Is God deaf that we are screaming so much? I don't understand. That was my very first revival experience. I thought revival was just hype. I thought it was a special event. I thought it was a program. I did not know that true revival does not begin with a mosh pit. It doesn't begin with the fog machine, although I love the fog machine. Don't get me wrong, okay? Keep it coming until you can't see me anymore. Like, just keep it coming. It begins when you know Jesus. When I say know Jesus, I don't mean know of him. I mean know him intimately, authentically, and passionately. Know Jesus. That is when revival starts to happen. Let me tell you, if one of you, and I genuinely mean this, if just one of you today came out of this, committing yourself to know Jesus for the rest of your life, your entire city, nay, your entire state, no, your entire nation can be changed. Because revival is a wildfire that doesn't start with jumping. Revival is a wildfire that doesn't start because a drummer begins that vamp. The revival is a wildfire that doesn't happen just because you flew someone from New Jersey to Oklahoma City and got her stuck in the pastor's bathroom. That's not where revival starts. Revival starts when God's people begin to know him, like really know him. Then the wildfire begins. I want to talk about a revival that you may or may not know of, and it's in John chapter 4, verse 1 to 30. But I'm gonna share with you this beautiful story. And I'm gonna go by it piece by piece. I know sometimes reading the Bible can be a bit like bring on the pizza and the dunk fest. But sometimes when we bring out scripture, we're like, Let me tell you, it is a blessing that the Bible is so long. Because what if the Bible ended at Genesis 3? It should have. What if God gave up on us the moment we fell? The Bible will be 3 pages long. But the fact that it's 66 books amongst various continents, written in the span of 1,500 years, written by kings and shepherds, tax collectors, criminals, just shows that we have a God that just won't stop pursuing you and me. He just won't quit. So let's turn to John chapter 4, verse 1 to 30. It says, now this is the word of God. It says, when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard he was making and baptizing more disciples than John, though Jesus himself was not baptizing, but his disciples were, he left Judea and went again to Galilee. He had to travel through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the property that Jacob had given his son to Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, worn out from his journey, sat down at the well. It was about noon. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Give me a drink, Jesus said to her, because his disciples had gone into town to buy food. How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? She asked him. For Jews do not associate with Samaritans. Now that's the first chunk of it. Are you guys with me? You guys are with me? Okay. Backdrop. John chapter 3, Jesus goes off on the gospel. It talks about how we are the bride, and God is the bridegroom, and how he has come to save us. I mean, that really popular verse that you may already know of, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, that one, that's right before this chapter. So here we are, like the gospel. Jesus has come to save you. That whole thing that you and I both know. Who did Jesus choose to demonstrate this gospel love to? Did he choose the pastor? Did he choose the praise team? Did he choose the front row? He chose the most unlikely candidate to be a recipient of his love. It's so funny because it says that Jesus had to go to Samaria, but actually he didn't really have to go to Samaria. The Jewish people avoided going to Samaria, but Jesus, he had to go. He had to. He had to show you his love. He had to meet you and interrupt you because yes, this part of the passage is a grave interruption. You know when you're like doing your homework and really busy with stuff and your sibling just comes into your room and they're just interrupting you. Some of you feel that really deeply and I'm so sorry. Or when you're like right at the cusp of getting your report almost done and your mom says, go clean something. And you just feel so deeply interrupted. One of my friends, he got saved, but he almost didn't come into that experience of salvation because he wanted to watch some NBA dunk contest. You know what that is? I still don't know what that is. But I just know that multiple adults bombarded his room and said, you have to go to church today. And he felt so interrupted. Jesus had to interrupt this woman. What is a holy interruption? It is God knocking on your door. I want you to know me. Some of you didn't want to be here. Someone pressured you to come, maybe a friend. It's an interruption. But every interruption, you know that feeling when you're at school and you're just doing your own thing, but then you immediately just remember Jesus? That's an interruption. You know when you just want to give up on Christianity, but then you have a small group leader that says, hey, why don't you come out? That's an interruption. It's a pathway. It's an invitation. Let's get revival. Let's get to know Jesus. And so Jesus interrupts her, but how does she react? She goes, excuse me, you're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan woman. First of all, men and women back then didn't really talk like that. You're a Jewish man, I'm a Samaritan woman, our people hate each other. So she's rationalizing. In some way, she's rejecting him. Nobody likes to talk to somebody that's rejecting you, that says, excuse me, we're not supposed to be talking right now. When you like someone's Instagram and they never like yours. Well, I'm just not going to like yours back anymore. We get petty like that. But you know what's beautiful about Jesus? He stayed. He stayed. He kept reaching for her. He kept connecting with her. Let me tell you, if you have come from a rough season, and I feel like there's some of you that have experienced some darkness internally that you're not letting on to just everybody in the church, let me tell you, as long as you breathe, Jesus won't stop. Jesus won't stop. He won't stop interrupting you. He won't stop pursuing you, reaching for you. Are you guys ready to keep going? Are you guys with me? Yeah? Okay, here we go. John chapter 4, starting from verse 10. Jesus answered, if you knew the gift of God and who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would ask him and he would give you living water. Sir, said the woman, you don't even have a bucket and the well is deep. She's clearly missing his point, right? So where do you get this living water? You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and livestock. Jesus said, everyone who drinks from the water will get thirsty again, but whoever drinks from the water that I will give him will never get thirsty again. In fact, the water I will give him will become a well of water springing up in him for eternal life. Sir, the woman said to him, give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and come here to draw water. You know what's so wild here? She clearly is not getting it. You know, do you have a friend in your friend group that's a little slow? You all know. I already see you guys laughing. You know, like the one that's like laughs like 30 seconds later than everybody else? You know what I'm saying? You know, so this Samaritan woman, she's just not getting it. Jesus is like, hey, I got living water for you. And she's like, okay, so how does this work? I don't have to come back here. I don't have to do this thing. Because if you know the whole story, you know this woman has a past. And she's already living in brokenness, which is why she's at the well at noon. It is a way to hide. Because nobody goes to the well at noon. It's too hot. The sun is at the highest point. So here's this woman living with a man that's not her husband, has had multiple ex-lovers in her life, a pariah to her society. And she's getting what Jesus is saying, but she's not getting what Jesus is saying. But you know what? The fact that she said, give me this living water, was one of the best decisions of her life. And you may be thinking, but she clearly did not know what she was asking for. Because if you think about it, she was thinking, okay, this man, he's on something, but he's saying that there is this living water where I don't have to come back here ever again. Basically, she thought Jesus had the key to cover her shame, when actually what Jesus was trying to do was get rid of her shame. She thought Jesus was going to help her change what she does, when Jesus wanted to change who she is. She wasn't getting it though. But you know what? You know what? Jesus stayed. He wasn't like, fail, like, stop, nope, bye. Like he stayed. Even though she wasn't getting it. Y'all, sometimes that's faith. You know how I was telling you when I first went to my first revival and I was just like God must be hard of hearing because I don't know what all these people are screaming for. I didn't understand what was going on. I didn't fully understand the Bible. But you don't wait to understand to go to Jesus. You go to Jesus and eventually understand. You don't get 1 John, go to Jesus anyways. You didn't understand the sermon? Go to Jesus anyways. You didn't understand what Faith was talking about, and you just remember that she got stuck in Pastor Rodney's bathroom? Go to Jesus anyways. We don't understand to go to Jesus. We go to Jesus to eventually understand. And that's what this woman did. She's like, I don't understand. Like, what's some magic water that Jesus, so I don't have to come back here, but you know what? Just give it to me. Just give it to me. Can we have that posture instead of prove it to me? Oh, I'm not going to raise my hand until God proves that he's here with me. Oh, I'm not going to go to the altar call unless God proves that he's with me. Or should we go anyways? Should we say yes anyways? And trust that God will unveil things in his time. You guys with me? Ready to keep going? Yeah? Okay. Verse 16. So Jesus says, Go call your husband. He told her, and come back here. I don't have a husband, she answered. You know why I'm laughing? You know, if anybody came up to the altar call later tonight and you said, Pastor, I want to receive Jesus, and I want to do all that, I am not going to go get your mom. I'm not going to tell you, now go get your friend. I have no friend. I'm not going to do that. Jesus didn't seem to get the whole Evangelism 101 class. But you know what's so funny? She says, I have no husband. We can't miss it. You guys, don't miss this. We miss things so easily. Don't miss this. Something is happening. Jesus said, go get your husband. And she said, I have no husband. Something is happening here. Are you paying attention? Something is happening. You can't miss it. Something is happening. What is happening? Up until this point, everything the Samaritan woman was saying was just religious information. Everything this woman was saying was just cultural information. This is not how it works. Are you like our father Jacob? It was just information, but this is the first thing she said that was her truth. This is the first non-religious thing that she said. Because that is what happens the longer you sit with Jesus. Something happens. You start giving more. You start trusting me more. You start doing this thing called confession and revealing yourself to him. Some of you may be thinking, I came up here. I raised my hand and I felt nothing. Bless you for coming up here, but can I challenge you to keep staying with Jesus, just as the Samaritan woman did? Because even though it was confusing, and even though she clearly wasn't getting it, something was happening. And it's the first time she didn't just regurgitate information, but it was the first time she confessed. She offered him her messy truth. Something happens when we sit with Jesus. We realize that he loves us so much that we are safe to confess our deepest and darkest secrets. I remember, is anybody here 6th grade? I love 6th grade, by the way. Everyone else is great too, but I don't know. I just love 6th grade. I have a heart for 6th graders. Okay. I was a youth pastor for about 12 years. Not that long if you really think about it, but I'm a co-lead pastor with my husband now, but I used to be a youth pastor. I remember I would always have my 6th graders sit in the front, the splash zone. And I remember it's always the first couple of months where I go, hey, what did the Bible passage say? Jesus? What is God telling you? Pray. Well, what did you learn from today? Moses? What did you get from revival and retreat? Pray. Just trained, ritualistic, religious regurgitations. We're just repeating knowledge. We don't really mean it. We're just saying it because that's what it takes to get that moment out of the way. You know what I'm saying? But I remember this one kid. I'll never forget him. He would always be in the front. And first month, Jesus, just pray. Moses, just pray. Second month, I guess I should pray. 3rd month, Jesus still loves me. 4th month, he came into my office and he said, Pastor Faith, I'm struggling with porn. A confession. The real. Jesus doesn't need your Sunday night performance. Jesus did not die for your Sunday activities. Jesus did not die to see who could jump the highest. Jesus died so that you can know him. And you know what the beautiful thing is? When the Samaritan woman said, I have no husband, Jesus stayed. Why? Because although she may not have fully understood him, he already fully knew her. And he loved her anyways. Do you know what that feels like? For someone to know all the darkest things about you and love you anyways. You know, some of my kids are getting old enough where they think they're a little too cool for me. Okay, I have 4 kids. And, my older 2, they say things like, Mom, it's embarrassing. Mom, I don't want to tell you. Mom. And you know what I say? I say, child of God, I wiped your butt. I know where every birthmark is. I know where every dot on your body is. I literally know what your butt crack looks like. And I love you anyways. So get over it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes to Jesus, we're like, oh, I don't want to pray because it's embarrassing. God knows every part of you. He knows about your addictions. He knows what you struggle with. He already knows what happened to you a long time ago. He already knows that embarrassing thing that's going on at school. He knows. But this is the thing. He loves you anyways. And that is what the Samaritan woman was figuring out. Are you ready to keep going? Yeah? You guys with me? Yeah? Okay. It says later on in verse 17, you have correctly said, I don't have a husband, Jesus said, for you've had 5 husbands. The man you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. Sir, the woman replied, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews say that the place to worship is in Jerusalem. Jesus told her, believe me, woman, an hour is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship that what you do not know. We worship what we do know, because salvation is from the Jews, but an hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Yes, the Father wants such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah, who is called Christ, when he comes, he will explain everything to us. Jesus told her, I, the one speaking to you, am he. This moment changed everything. Because, you guys, if you read this whole story, you see that her perspective of Jesus begins to grow, and she gets to know him more intimately the longer she sits with him by the well. In the beginning, she thought he was just a Jewish man. And then she goes, are you greater than Jacob? And then she goes, you must be a prophet. But none of those things led to her transformation. None of those things led to revival until she realized that Jesus Christ is not just some magician, that Jesus Christ isn't just some nice man with Santa Claus-like qualities. No, Jesus is actually Messiah. You have to get to that place. There's some people that go, I've been to church, but I don't feel the power. I don't know where the transformation is. I listen to the sermons. I go to the Bible study. I do all these things, but my life isn't changing. It's because the power is not in the tradition. The power is knowing Jesus Christ for who he actually is. Her life did not change, but in this moment when she realized, this is the Messiah, everything changed. I shared a little bit about how I'm Korean American. I was born in Korea, but I lived in LA. And around 5 to 6 years old, and I'm going to close soon, so worship team could come up. When I was about 5 to 6 years old, I don't know, I had this epiphany because my parents are not Christian. And I thought, if God exists, I feel like we should be chill. You know what I mean? I feel like we should be friends. And so I started to pray every night. I didn't pray well. It was prayers like, God, can you just show up right now and I'll keep it a secret? Jesus, if you just part the clouds, then I'll know for sure that you're there. That was the way I prayed to God. Once we were on a family vacation, and I saw a gospel film in the hotel television. And I asked my mother, who is that man? And she says, that's Jesus. And I said, that looks like a very nice man. That day, our family car flipped over twice in the Nevada desert. And the police all said we should have all been dead. A helicopter had to come in and get us. Because something happens when we figure out God's name. I was looking for God. I didn't know his name was Jesus. After I healed and, all that, told my parents to take me to the library. I looked at the librarian. I was 6 years old, and I said, do you have any books on Jesus? And she looked at me and she goes, child, then you got to go to church to learn about Jesus. So I told my parents to drop me off at church. All this happened when I was 6 years old, but I did not get saved until I was 16. I didn't change until I was 16. People around me didn't change until I was 16. Why? Because I knew that he was God. I knew his name. I knew his ways. I figured out where 1 Kings was in the Bible. I learned some of his songs. I wore the t-shirts. I did the bonfires at the retreats. But I remember when I was 16 years old, my mother sent me to a youth camp in Mexico. And I remember the preacher was preaching, and I don't fully remember what he said, but I do remember him making it very clear that we actually need to choose Jesus. We need to choose to give him our full yes, our whole hearts, our I have no husbands, our version of that. And we need to follow him all the days of our lives. And I was given a promise that day that if I do that, then I will become friends with God. That's all I wanted. Up until that point, I was just tired of the whole church thing. Eventually I stopped going to church because I was just tired. And all those happy Christians, I just wanted to slap them in the face. Like, life isn't that great. Why are you so happy? I didn't realize what they had, I did not have, was they knew Jesus. And I didn't know that it is a promise that if I spend the rest of my days following him, then I will know him as a friend. Not as a tradition. Not as my pastor's friend. My friend. And you know what's awesome? After I became a Christian when I was 16, I messed up right away. I failed. I lost some passion. I screwed up a million times and then some. But he stayed. He stayed. Because that's our Jesus. It says in John chapter 14, verse 15 to 18, if you love me, you will keep my commands, and I'll ask the Father, and he'll give you another counselor to be with you forever. He is the Spirit of truth. The world is unable to receive him because it doesn't see him or know him. But you know him because he remains with you and will be in you. I will not leave you as orphans. I am coming to you. He stays. So now, we could be like the Samaritan woman who actually, after all this, she was a Christian for 30 seconds, let me tell you. And she ran to her village, the very people she was trying to avoid, and she was so filled. She was so whole. She was so happy that she said, come see a man who told me everything that I've ever done. Could this be the Messiah? And she turned the whole village towards Jesus. To the point when Jesus actually visited that village, they said, we believe because of this woman's testimony, but now we also believe because we saw you. Revival doesn't start because we go to church with our friends, although that's good. Keep doing it. It doesn't culminate when you feel really excited about the music. It spreads like wildfire, just like that Samaritan woman, when we get to know him intimately, authentically, and passionately. Can we all rise? And try not to talk to the person on your left and your right, because this is between you and God. I want you to put your right hand on your heart. I want you to close your eyes. Do you know him? What is your truth today? What is your version of, I have no husband? For some of you, it's, God, I don't know you as much as I want to, and I want to start today. For some of you, it's, Jesus, I'm really having a tough time. And I want to go through it with you. Can you pray your most honest prayers right now?